Good evening, Zambia. Good evening, Africa. You're watching your multi-award winning channel of choice, Muvi TV. This is a special interview with me, your host, Andrew Mwans. And our speeding is one of the major causes of road traffic crashes in Zambia. A baseline survey on speeding conducted by the Zambia Institute for Policy Analysis and Research, ZIPA, on behalf of the Road Transport Safety Agency in 2016 revealed that over 39% of vehicles sampled in Central Province, Lusaka Province, Southern Province, and the Copperbelt Province were speeding on public roads. This entails that most of the drivers on the Zambian roads are driving above the prescribed speed limit, a situation that has contributed to road crashes, resulting in deaths and injuries. But what is the relationship between the driving school which a driver attends and road accidents? This is what will dominate our conversation on tonight's edition of this special interview. And to help me really discuss this issue in-depthly, I'm privileged to be joined in by Ms. Hope Kasese Kumalo, who is the Driving Schools Association of Zambia president, and we are looking at road traffic accidents in this country, Zambia. Ms. Kumalo, good evening and welcome to this edition of the special interview.
Good evening, viewers.
Those joining the conversation on the Muvi TV Plus, Bouquet Channel 1, the Top Star Decoder, Channel 104. Later on, you'll be able to come through and give us your contributions via the number that is scrolling down your TV screen. Yet those that are joining the conversation from across the continent of Africa, you are joining us on our Facebook page, Ask Muvi TV. Our YouTube page is Ask Muvi TV. You can subscribe to our YouTube page and be part of this conversation. We're looking at road traffic accidents in Zambia. Let's begin off with understanding probably the objectives of your foundation, the Driving Schools Association of Zambia. What are the objectives of this particular foundation before we can get down to the nitty-gritties of our conversation?
Okay, thank you, Mwansa. The main objectives of the Driving Schools Association of Zambia, I'll talk about the top three. The first one being to bring together the fully registered and compliant driving institutions or driving schools into a coordinated mechanism that helps us to be able to improve our own working, but also to be able to, as a group, link to the public and get the public views, but also link to the government and be able to support the government holistically. I think if I remember correctly, one of the main reasons that we got encouraged to form the association was that each individual driving school in those days used to have areas of concern that they would want to approach the government with. They would want to recommend to government ways that we believed systems could be improved in terms of improving driver training, but also helping to reduce road traffic accidents. And I think between RATSA and ourselves as driving schools, we came to the realization that forming an association that would act as a one voice, a mouthpiece for the different driving schools would work best in terms of enhancing the private-public partnership between ourselves as driving schools and the government as the duty bearers, especially in the issues of road traffic accident prevention and improvement of road safety. So the main thing is that we've grouped together and we have it's a mouthpiece that acts as the conduit between the driving schools and the government, Ministry of Transport, but also RATSA. The second objective that we have as DSIS is to really improve and look at conducting research in terms of new trends in driver training, in road safety education. So looking at what are the best methods, how can we improve systems continuously in introspection as individual driving schools, but also together as a group to ensure that we are always going back to the drawing board and improving the service that we are offering to the general public. And then the third is that to act as a lobbying and advocacy institution to advocate, because as we try to do our work, we could have gaps, or we could have certain tools that we are lacking that we would need to look at which stakeholder would assist us in terms of providing certain tools. I'll talk a bit more about that hopefully as we go along in terms of the main advocacy issues that we've so far embarked on, but also that we are hoping to embark on as an association, which we believe that ultimately will help us to train better, to produce better trained drivers who will consequently help to reduce the current road carnage on the road.
But how long have you been in existence as an organization?
Okay, we have been in existence for slightly over 10 years. I can't even believe it when I say that because it feels like yesterday. And even though we have been in existence for slightly over 10 years, we are still suffering from teething problems. But yes, we registered in 2011, but we officially launched in 2010. But we officially launched DISAS in 2011, November 2011. Yeah, I remember by the then Minister of Transport and Communication, Honorable Muvi at the time, yeah, 2011.
Yeah, but what would you attribute to as some of the challenges you've experienced thus far as an association in ensuring that you conduct your objectives, effectively?
Yes, I think one of the main things one of the main challenges that we face is that I think we at different levels of we're at different levels of existence as the individual driving schools. So we have some that are starting up, that are struggling through to remain afloat, and I think some who are seen to be more mature, those who've stayed longer and are more established. So you find that at that point when we talk about improvement of our operations, I think there's a general feeling, especially with the newer schools that are just starting, that they are not at a stage where they could improve certain standards that are being introduced, that we are talking about introducing, and that we have introduced, feel that maybe they have not reached that level of sustainability and stability that they could meet some of the requirements that we feel as an association are very important for us to command the recognition and also the respect, I think, and also just the confidence, public confidence that we would be able to command if we put these standards in place. So I think it's an issue of buy-in because of, I think the main thing being that the newer schools, the schools that feel they have not reached the level of sustainability, feel they cannot attain certain standards that are trying to be enforced. So I think that has been one of the main things. So you find that we are sometimes at loggerheads within ourselves saying, no, these standards are too high. Yes, but with some schools believing that this is indeed what will gain us the confidence, both from the government, but also from the general public. But I think, having said that, I think these are problems. I think basically if you look at a lot of associations that, having read around how associations have started and how they've evolved, I think these are normal things, but I think what's important is to set the standard. The standard must be set. I mean, we cannot not set standards because we believe that we are new. I think we need to start with certain standards because this is what will help us to tackle the issues that we are dealing with.
Before we can come to some of the agreed standards that driving schools ought to operate by, is it binding and is it mandatory that every driving school is supposed to be a subscriber to the association?
Okay. As we stand right now, the Driving Schools Association of Zambia is a voluntary organization. So we are not a statute, and even though we are registered by the Registrar of Societies, we need to, our registration status is such that we need to convince members. So it's not mandatory that they should be members.
So
they
you cannot
need
even
to.
regulate them.
We cannot even regulate them, although the project that we are going to talk about, the compliance, the driving schools compliance sticker, is one tool that that the RATs are deemed fit to work with us, to implement with us, which will sort of give us some regulation powers, for lack of a better word, self-regulation powers, because it's generally felt that our parent ministry is RATSA, but they are a lean organization and they have a huge responsibility, and therefore they cannot be on the ground to check and ensure that each and every driving school is meeting standards. But through the compliance sticker program, the RATSA is giving us some powers to be able to self-regulate ourselves and improve, first of all, set standards of improving, and also then enforce those standards. So in that way, we'll be able to self-regulate ourselves and ensure that, that we how can I put it, that we are able to enforce these standards. Of course, it will still be voluntary. Voluntary. Yes, but we're hoping that once the general public buys into the initiative, once they begin to see the difference between the certified schools and the non-certified schools, that the market demand itself will push the schools that have not certified to certify.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that you've already highlighted, the standards which every driving school ought to meet before they can start the operations. What are some of the standards that are prescribed? Okay, yes.
According to the Road Traffic Act, there are a number of standards. I'll talk about some key ones. One of the key ones being that any driving school needs to have certain training facilities. So the main training facilities being vehicles that are in good condition, that are roadworthy, they've met the fitness testing by RATSA, and preferably they have a fourth pedal provision for the safety of the instructor, but also the examiners when they are when the candidates are being tested by the RATSA examiners. But also they need to have other facilities such as a classroom where they will be able to teach the theory of driving. A lot of times people have taken driving to be a physical activity. So mostly if you want to learn how to drive, you can tell your friend or your cousin to say, teach me how to drive. And when they teach you how to drive, you focus on, they'll tell you, go to gear 1, this is how you clutch out. And, but you find that there will be a gap in terms of when you learn from home, somebody teaching you about the rules at the T-junction, the rules at side road junction right, at the side road junction left. So you find that a person who's trained from a school will also know the theory, which are rules and regulations, road signs, but also safety recommendations of handling the vehicle and driving the vehicle itself. Whereas the person who's usually trained from home will probably be very good at driving the car itself, but lagging behind in terms of the rules and regulations, the road signs, and the recommended safety practices of a good driver, a safe and responsible driver. So the classroom is one of the key things. The training vehicles is one of the key things. A training circuit or land to be used as an off-road training circuit when you are introducing the drivers, because as you introduce a new driver, you cannot, it's not safe for you to take a person who's never driven a car before and put them on the road and teach them to drive, to moving off a car from no previous knowledge directly onto the road. That is unsafe. So the RATs have prescribed that a person should have a ground and an off-road training circuit or improvised training circuit that they could use for the purpose of introducing a person to the vehicle until they command enough experience and some basic knowledge of the rules. We drive on the left-hand side, so you should at least train somebody to know that when they're on the road, they keep left before you actually take them on the road. So the training circuit is one of the requirements stipulated by the the RATSA regulations on how to register a driving school. So then that, and then you have to register a business with the PACRA, and then now once you have those, then the RATSA will go so the training facility is a classroom, bathrooms, an office, a separate office, and a separate reception. So the idea is that there should be a classroom which is dedicated for training, which will be separate from a reception where you receive visitors, and an office where a manager would sit and supervise the work that goes on in the institution. So these are the key things. So once you have this, then there are forms that you need to fill in with the RATSA. Then once you filled in and you make a formal application, then the RATSA will come and inspect the offices and the vehicles.
Yeah, and but in terms of, I don't know for a fact that you've done a research in terms of some of the challenges which these startups driving schools are facing. What would you say are some of the consistent challenges in terms of meeting the standards that have been set up by RATSA, by these driving schools?
I would say the key, and also, yes, so the staffing, staffing, so that's the fourth one, which I really need to mention, because when we talk about the consistent challenges, staffing is one of the main challenges that we're facing. So you need to have at least one registered driving instructor, as in registered by RATSA, because the person who wants to teach how to drive for gain has to have what is called an instructor's license, which is issued by the RATSA. And this is he also has to go through certain screening, so he needs to have a license he has held for not less than 2 years, needs to be to have a PSV license. Therefore, he needs to be above 25, because a PSV license can only be held by somebody who's 25 and above. And they also need to do additional skills training, such as defensive driving, first aid. So we have that. So you need to have at least one certified instructor as part of your application. So the consistent challenges that we are facing, that even as one of the advocates, remember I said one of the functions of the DSAS is lobbying and advocacy. Yes. One of our key areas of advocacy over the years since inception have been to lobby government to create some land, to reserve some land, to gazette, for lack of a better word, land to be used as training circuits. Because this is one of the main areas that schools are failing to. You want to open a school, you have everything else, but the land which you are going to use to start up the training is a challenge. There's the land in Lusaka is almost gone. So for you to find a piece of land that you can adapt and use for this purpose, that's one of the key challenges that we are facing. But also sometimes you find land that you are leasing, and you could be, anytime people have been inconvenienced and thrown out, and then they don't have this land anymore, and it's a requirement. So you find that then when you were registering, you had this land, but you are thrown out, so you fall behind on one of the main requirements that you're supposed to have. And then the second thing is the instructors. We do not have an institution in the country that trains driving instructors as we stand right now. So to have driving instructors is one of the key challenges. In fact, a lot of driving schools, one of the key things that we are facing as a major challenge is driving instructors. So usually what we are doing, most of us, is that we are having our own internal training system. We find people who are interested in doing this job, and they do a job on training with us over a 2-year or 3-year period, and then once we've trained them, then we present them to the RATSA for them to be tested and then certified as instructors. But again, once these people get the instructor's license, they become very marketable. A lot of schools are finding that once the instructor has been certified, they leave. So you remain with this gap, and since there's no training institution, it's this in-house training, which is a long process. Yeah. And quite a tedious one, but a key thing, because if you are going to talk about improving standards, it starts with the instructors. Of course, the facilities play a key role also, but these two work hand in hand. So this is a key thing in terms of the lobbying with RATSA. We've been lobbying since inception. Another key thing that we've consistently lobbied over is that there should be a formal setup of how instructors will be trained, and and that consistently we should have a crop of driving instructors that are trained and available to take up positions in the schools. Yeah.
So, but how would you describe your relationship with and I'll give government as one of your key stakeholder in the part of the advocacy and lobbying process. How would you describe the relationship you share with them in terms of at times when you lobby certain certain things from government? How has been the relationship?
The relationship has been very cordial. First of all, actually, when we just registered, because one of the things for you to register an association, you have to actually get what is called a letter of recommendation from your parent ministry. So in our case, our parent ministry is the RATSA. Initially, when we were registering, we were told, no, the ministry is your parent, Ministry of Transport and Communication is your parent ministry, get a letter of recommendation. But after they looked into their different portfolios as RATSA and the ministry, it was determined that RATSA is actually the parent. And, the process was very cordial. They interviewed us, they found out what are the objectives, they inputted, and then they wrote us a letter of recommendation. So from the word go, we've had very cordial relationships. The minister launched the association, so you can see that this is an institution that government has deemed very relevant and a very key partner in terms of improving driver training standards and consequently helping to reduce accidents. So we've had cordial relations, but I think at the end of the day, the government has a huge responsibility to provide an enabling environment. And if you look at like the RATSA, they are dealing with so many different institutions. We have the Truckers Association, we have UTTA, we have the Passengers and Thingy Association. The driving schools are just one of them. So they have to deal with so many institutions, such that at the end of the day, how your programs will run will depend more or less on how aggressive your lobbying and advocacy is, and how you make yourselves relevant. So to a certain extent, I think it's a two-way relationship. So certain projects have not moved as well as we've wanted them to move, but we would not blame that on the government. We would say that our lobbying and advocacy probably needs to improve, and also that we need to position ourselves for the relevance of the advocacy initiatives that we are advocating for to be clearly seen. Because I think where there's a clear relevance, we've always gotten the support. But sometimes I think it's an issue of failing to clearly show the relevance of some of the advocacy issues that we've been working on.
I don't know for a fact that different institutions have conducted their own individual research on some of the major causes of accidents in our country. From your end as the SARS, have you conducted any research to ascertain what could be some of the major causes of road traffic accidents in our country?
Yes, we have, not formal research, unfortunately, but very informal research. For me personally, I've been working in the area of road safety from 1997. And through, working with the RATSA when it was still called the Road Traffic Commission, for a number of years, I did some studies and was attached to the National Road Safety Board, which right now has become three institutions: the National Road Fund Agency, the RDA, and RATSA itself. In those days, it was just called the National Road Safety Board, the National Road Safety Board. Yes, I did an attachment there many years ago in 1997. So you find that okay, now I've lost my thoughts. So what was the question? I can just remind me once.
Okay, I was asking about some of the major causes of road traffic accidents.
Yes. So through my personal interaction with road safety players in the country, from the days of Road Traffic Commission, National Road Safety Board, up to now the three institutions that have been formulated to deal with the funding and operationalization of road safety. One of the key things that for us, especially as driver trainers, the key thing that we have identified as the major cause of accidents is actually the way a person has been initiated into driving. So we're saying the way a person is trained as a driver, for us, is what we are consistently saying is the root cause of the bad driving and subsequently the road traffic accidents that we are seeing. Because the issues of overspeeding and everything, human error that the formal research has brought out, for us, we would rather say those are symptoms of the root cause. The root cause being how a person is introduced to driving. Because if you buy a phone once and you don't look at the manual, you start figuring out how to switch it on, one day you're going to press a button that will delete everything. Because you have not taken time to understand. The instructors, the manufacturers will always give recommendations, safety recommendations. If you want this equipment to work safely, you have to follow these safety recommendations, which is what doesn't happen to a person who just learns how to drive from a colleague or a parent. Because rarely will that colleague or parent walk the candidate through understanding the vehicle itself. The vehicle has got a handbrake. What is the importance of a handbrake? How do you operate the handbrake? So you find people, when they operate a handbrake, what they know is when they are engaging it, they press it in and lift it up. When they are disengaging it, they just drop it, and it makes a sound. You know that half of the cars that end up, the handbrake stops working, is because of just dropping it without pressing in the knob. So the main thing is that people are using a machinery without understanding it, without understanding what are its components, what is the work of these components. And as you operate this machinery, it works hand in hand with a road that has been designed to have junctions, to have lanes, to have demarcations, roundabouts. So you have a person who just gets in a car and they are told move it, and then they move it, and then they don't understand all the other safety issues that come with operating this vehicle. And for us, that is what we are saying is the root cause of the accidents. Because you have people who don't understand.
Yes, you will come to and give us a contribution. Scrolling down your screen, you can tell us what's the truth about this road traffic accidents in Zambia. Now, I have attended what I say a group of different driving schools, right? And most of them have got different time periods in which one can, gradually get their, can pass their test and do all those things. What is the prescribed time frame in which one should be on the road in terms of learning how to drive?
Okay, so the time frame, as you are saying, it can be quite subjective, but according to the law, it has prescribed a minimum of 20 hours. So as driving schools, we have been prescribed to say a person who's being taught to drive from the scratch needs to do 20 hours, a minimum of 20 hours training for them to reach a standard where they can attempt the test.
So minimum of 20 hours.
A minimum of 20 hours. But because of the many different, what we call the duality of the law. So on one hand, the law prescribes a minimum of 20 hours, but on the other hand, the law allows people to train from home.
Just hold your thought. Let me try, pinching a call. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. Yes, good evening.
Hello.
Yes, good evening. We can hear you. Hello, good evening. Okay. All right, I'm just going to cut your call and ensure that when you call us, you reduce the volume on your TV set or completely turn it off so that we do not receive feedback. For us to have effective communication, you have to really reduce your volume on your screen so that we could communicate effectively. Hello, good evening. So President Vanarep tili tacha feature road traffic accident. I mean tacha feature DISA's president were discussing road traffic accidents in Zambia. All right. I'll ask my director to just put the number that they're calling through on the screen so that people could call for this particular program where we're discussing road traffic accidents in Zambia. And my guest being Ms. Hope Kasese Kumalo, who is Driving Schools Association of Zambia president. Now we're looking at, we're discussed just before I attempted to pick the caller, we're looking at the minimum time frame in which one ought to attend driving school before finally they can be tested. Now you said something very important, that the the law prescribes that one could even be taught from home?
Yes. So we have a dual law that allows, on one hand, it establishes, it provides for the establishment of driving schools that have been given standards to meet. One of them being to teach for a minimum of 20 hours before presenting a candidate for the test. But also then we have the other end where they allow for private tuition. This is okay in itself because we've also done a lot of research in terms of looking at, is there any country that that doesn't allow private tuition? So according to our research, we'll be corrected if we're wrong. There's no country that doesn't allow for private tuition. But what a lot of countries have done is that they've put a mandatory minimum hours that a person should go to a school, out of the realization that if a person only does private tuition, the issues we're talking about of the theory and the laws and the rules usually get left out behind. So you find that you have a person who can very well control the vehicle, but who might not, who would be lacking knowledge on the rules and the regulations, which are make a person what we call a fully baked driver. Because a fully baked driver, even when we take our candidates for the test, we actually advise them to say, the examiner will be looking for two things. So he'll be looking at your practical competence, but also he'll be looking at how well you understand the rules and the regulations and the safety recommendations of each and every move that you're going to make on the road. So you find that a person who trains privately will lack this theoretical component. So a lot of countries have moved then, and they've introduced a minimum number of hours. Like in the UK, they've introduced a minimum of 10 hours in a approved driving institution. And in that 10 hours, there's the driving institution which has been approved has been given a syllabus that they have to ensure that a person before that person is presented for the test, they have taken them through this and this and these components. So which is what also at the stage that we're working with the RATSA. If you look at the certification program, our compliance sticker program, one of the key components of that program is quality assurance and standardization. So we've actually made a lot of strides towards this goal. There are syllabuses. So yes, you've said you've gone to different schools and you've seen they use different methods and different length of training. But the training syllabuses that we have developed in collaboration with RATSA and TEVETA, they are all encompassing. They've been well thought through with the relevant stakeholders. Everybody, transporters themselves were part of crafting this syllabus to ensure that, all the components that a driver or a person who's going to drive a motor vehicle should understand and know. So these syllabuses are there, but it's the issue of I like this word and I can't pronounce it, putting it into practice, so we have these documents that right now could be sitting on the shelf, but they are in place. And one of the key components of the certification program that we are working on will be to make sure that there's consistent training of the instructors in the using of the syllabuses that have been developed, so that at the end of the day, a school that's going to be certified would provide a standard training, and even the quality of the training will be assured. because they'll be screened and
Yeah.
they'll.
I'll be asking much more about the compliance sticker and just maybe getting to understand what it is. But I'll ask for my director, Mr. Gabriel, to just display the number on the screen so that people could see the right number to call. We're discussing road traffic accidents in Zambia, and my guest is Hope Kasese Kumalo, who's Driving School Association of Zambia president. We're looking at road traffic accidents in this country, Zambia. We'd like to have an understanding of what compliance sticker is, because I think you've been consistently mentioning it from the time that we started. What is a compliance sticker?
Okay, so the driving schools compliance sticker is an initiative that the Road Transport and Safety Agency and the Driving Schools Association of Zambia have since launched. We launched this initiative in October 2020, last year. It's a program whose main aim is to ensure quality assurance and standardization of driver training, with the view of providing better drivers who will not only be practically good, but they will understand the rules and regulations, so we'll be able to produce safe, legal, and responsible drivers through this certification program by the process that each school which hopes to be certified.
Sorry to hold you, Ms. Kasese. Let me just try pushing this caller. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, who's on the line and where are you calling us from?
Smarter from Chilawombo.
Sparta from Chilawombo. How is Chilawombo this evening?
This evening, somewhere cool, the weather is fine. I'm just following your program.
Please, what is your contribution?
Yes, I would like to add to the amount that I thank. But the thing is, what has discovered the whole program in the road is the rasta is okay. The rasta program is okay. And I don't think the Zambia Police have gone through the same program that I think. Because sometimes they react and act without knowledge. I repeat, they react and act without knowledge. They should go through the same program. And the way you're trying to teach the drivers, just giving the Zambia Police thing taught in the same manner. Then you find that the things are going to be okay. But when you teach the driver and then if you put the traffic is there, the driver will be more knowledgeable than the traffic officer. Then something to say, who should support my life? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much for coming through, sir. Continue watching. Oh, I think great submission. Just before you could respond, you can finish your point and then also just explain to us how you ensuring that you coordinate and cooperate with agencies that are involved into this whole chain, especially when you're on the road, even the police, because I think the police have been giving us quite a lot of trouble in terms of wanting to catch us every time. Yeah.
You have to understand that the role of the police is enforcement. That's one of their key roles. So I think maybe what we need to do is to lobby the police to join us in the role of awareness raising and training, and also to encourage them to bring out their police service nature and hold back on the police force nature. So, but we really need to understand that their role is to enforce, and if a law has been broken, indeed, they need to ensure that it's they enforce the law. But I think we would really appeal to the police, I think, to join us to do a lot of awareness also with us, because I think sometimes people are ignorant. Of course, the police themselves would tell you ignorance is no defense. But I think it's very important to realize that, even the Road Traffic Act itself talks about warning and caution. If you look at most of the offenses in terms of what are the recommended punishment, so the Act itself does talk about to warn and to caution, and the person consistently breaking the law, not on every offense, but there are certain offenses where the Act recommends a warn and caution, and then if the person consistently breaks the record the law to be for the police to actually now then take punitive action. So yeah, so I think we again, these are advocacy issues, because the police need to be convinced that the person was ignorant and that the person was not just, taking, being negligent or taking it for granted that they can get away with breaking the law. So it's a thin line between their role as enforcers and, trying to create awareness, which is not really their role. But to get back to my point, the certification program, I want to just...
Let me just also write down, that concern before you can proceed with the question that I had earlier asked. You spoke about private tuitions, where you can even do private tuitions. But again, I think that the one thing that comes with is ignorance in terms of knowing what some of the rights that you have as a driver on the road are, and and maybe probably you could help us highlight some of the rights that a driver indeed has on the road.
Okay, I think in road safety the rights aspect is something that we deliberately try to put behind the responsibility. So I think one of the key things, and this is a global approach. One of the key things that globally the road safety experts.
I think there's a caller. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. All right, 0764250055 is the number that you're calling. Ensure that when you call us, you reduce the volume on your TV. So I want to pick as many calls as possible so that Ms. Kasese can clarify some of the burning issues that you might have in terms of driving on the road and any issues that pertain to road safety. Yeah, so you can come through at any time, and I'll hold Ms. Kasese for you to ensure that you pitch your question. But you can proceed.
Yes. So I was actually talking about the quality assurance and standardization as a key function of the compliance sticker initiative that the RATSA and ourselves and the Zambia Police are working on. The Zambia Police have been co-opted, or they have been approached with this initiative, because ideally at the end of, after a certain, right now we're in the process of screening and people putting their houses in order, but at some point there should be a time when the Zambia Police will enforce the compliance sticker initiative. So the driving schools will need to have a certification that says certified by RATSA for them to operate. So this is where we're hoping this initiative can take us, and this will be a role that the Zambia Police will play in the partnership. But at the stage that we are at the stage where we want the driving schools themselves to buy in, the general public to buy into the initiative, to see the relevance, to see the benefits that it holds, that the compliance sticker program will hold. One of the, I just want to give.
I'll also ask you what what are the qualifications for one to get the sticker, but also I'll ask what some of the benefits are. I think I've missed some of the calls. You can come through. 076-425-0055 is the number that you are coming through. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Yes, good evening. Who's on the line and where are you calling us from?
This is
Hello?
This is Mr. Pungu.
Yes, Mr. Pungu.
Yes.
Where are you calling us from?
From Maninga.
From Manyinga.
Yes.
What is your contribution, Mr. Pungu?
And here in Maninga, our roads are very bad.
Oh, yeah?
So, with the peaceful government promised to fix all the roads in the country, but here, our
Okay. All right, thanks, Mr. Pung. Well, however, those that may just join us, Ms. Hope Kasese is not coming in as governor. She's coming in as president of the Driving Schools Association of Zambia, which really is not entirely a government agency, but an association that just looks into issues of drivers right here in Zambia. And so she might not really have the authority to speak on issues of building roads and those other issues. So it's to those that are joining us and may not fully understand the background to this particular conversation. But we spoke about compliance stickers, and my question again was, how does one then qualify to possess this sticker?
Okay, maybe before I answer how they qualify, you also asked about what is what is it and what is its relevance.
Yes.
I'll talk about water, for example. When you want to buy a bottle of water, we have this ZAB certification. So it says approved by the Zambia Bureau of Standards. The certification gives public confidence in a product. So if I want water and I look at this mineral water, it doesn't have a ZAB certification and this one has a ZAB certification, obviously I'll buy the one which has certification, because to me it gives me confidence to know this product has been screened for the relevant quality issues that it needs to be screened for. We can look at the halal certifiers also, for example. This is another where our colleagues who are Muslim, they had issues of how to buy food, So they came up with this system where they built a system that helps them to, when they want a product, they'll look at it, is it halal certified? They know it's safe for them to take. So in the same vein as driving schools, there's been a lot of public outcry. Sometimes some standards of the schools leave much to be desired. I think you sort of hint on that a bit. We don't want to go in those details, but I think what we want to do is build a system. It's a system strengthening program that will inbuild systems. When we are talking about driver training, we know that the process of driver training in Zambia starts from point A, somebody opening a bonnet from somebody and showing them this is where your water will be in the radiator, this is how you check your engine oil, this is, so that a person, we know that if we are talking about a driver, they are going to understand this and this and this. If a person has been trained through a certified driving school, this is what they are going to do. Even as employers, we are going to be comfortable. Even as parents, when you have your child trained as a driver by a certified institution, you feel comfortable to give them that car to now say, yes, you've passed the test, you have a car, we want you to start driving yourself to college or to university. This is the sort of background and rationale that the certification program is holding for us. But talking about how the schools qualify, so we are looking at, this initiative started many years ago, but one of the things that really pushed us to push ourselves was when the Link Zambia project, 8,000 project started, when the government introduced their plans to build good road infrastructure, and we've seen this is happening. We've got flyover bridges. We are seeing road signs that we only used to see in the highway code, and when you travel to countries like South Africa and Namibia where they have a good road network, but now we're seeing our own road network has been improved. We have state-of-the-art facilities on the road. Our signage has improved. This gave us a push to say, how can we support the government? The government is investing all this money in road infrastructure. How then do we come in as the private sector to support the government? Because roads get vandalized from accidents. A person will hit a signpost and it ends there. This road becomes unsafe because the signpost has been hit into. To repair that signpost, it's money that the government more money that the government has to take from the coffers to repair this road sign or any part of the road that gets damaged because of road traffic accidents. So our thinking was, as the private sector, how can we support the government? How can we also work at ensuring that, and one of the things globally, where roads have been improved, accidents have gone up. And we saw this in the 2000 when we just started the road SIP many years ago. After the Great East Road was done, I remember when I was learning to drive in 96, 97, Great East Road was a two-way road. with a lot of potholes. The joke used to be, if you see somebody driving straight on Great East Road, he's drunk, because a sober driver will be avoiding potholes. So that was the joke. But when the road was done, we had hoped, yes, the road is done, we'll have less accidents, but what we saw was an increase in the road traffic accidents, because with improved roads come increased speeds, but also the vehicles that are being manufactured now, they are made to drive faster. They are made, everything has been perfected on the cars. So you see that technology has advanced, the roads have advanced. The knowledge of the drivers, it has remained at the low level. So our rationale was to say, let's support government, because the rise in the number of accidents won't fall on their own. We need to look at what are the initiatives that we can pitch in as the stakeholders. How can we support the government? How can we help the government to help reduce road carnage? And one of the, as I said, one of the key things that we are very, very sure of, even though our research has been very informal, is that people don't understand a lot of safety recommendations of how to use the vehicle itself, but also how, when you get, for example, so you've heard of people dying in a tire burst. And there are a number of people who are convinced that the tire burst is a death sentence. But as road safety experts, we know why a person would die in a tire burst, why driver A would die in a tire burst and driver B will survive in a tire burst. Because there are safety recommendations. When you have a tire burst, the off your brakes, off your accelerator, and let the car, just control the car and let it come to a stop. But we have people who don't have this training. When they have a tire burst, they rush to the brakes. And especially if you have a front tire burst, you rush to your brakes, you bring about this momentum, and then the car will now just roll over to this, especially if your front tire is if one of the front tires is burst, you bring the momentum to the front, and where the tire is burst, that's where everything, and you overturn, and people have overturned and they've died in tire bursts. And people believe that a tire burst is a death sentence, but rather it's an issue of knowledge of what is the recommended safety tips of dealing with a tire burst. So with every driving emergency, there are recommended safety tips. Brake failure, there are recommended safety tips. Driving when it's raining, every time when the rains come, we have a lot of accidents. We have buses overturning on trunk roads, because people don't understand the when the road is wet. There are a lot of things which happen. Your brakes are not as effective. You could easily skid, but a person needs to be trained in that for them to understand that. So we know for a fact that the main reason is that people are not being properly trained to understand safety recommendations of handling these vehicles, but also the rules and regulations.
We're supposed to be concluding. I have two questions before we conclude. Let me pick this call. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, who's on the line and where are you calling us from?
I'm calling you from G2, Copperbelt.
Mr. Lombe from Copperbelt.
Yes, please.
Please, I have Ms. Hope Kasese Kumalo with me. You can proceed and give us your contribution.
Good evening, Madam Hope.
Good evening, sir.
I'm Luvemba. How are you, Madam?
Fine, thank you, Mr. Luvemba. How are you?
I'm okay.
Yes, sir.
I think we have a lot to do with this time. We need, I think, our association to help the driving school. There's a lot that's going on that we have not done much. I'm trying to contact with you in our field. We need direction. We need a good relationship with the RADSA.
so much, Mr. Lambe, for coming through. All right. You touched a bit on what he said, but quickly, when is the sticker, compliance sticker being launched, and how will people identify that this is a compliance sticker?
So the compliance sticker was already launched. It was launched in October 2020, as I said, but I think it's one of the initiatives that have been launched, and there's still groundwork that's being worked on. So even though the sticker was launched, and different schools, as they meet the requirements, will start having this sticker. So how you identify it is it's written Driving Schools Association of Zambia, and they are certified by RATSA. So the vehicles that are the schools that are going to meet the standards will have this logo. It's going to be in the form of a sticker that will be stuck on the vehicles. It will say certified by RATSA with the RATSA logo and the Driving Schools Association, and also in the classroom. So when you get in the reception, so if you get in a driving school, you'll find
So this is not for driver, this is for driving schools?
This is for driving schools, yes. So it's the driving schools that have to be certified. So as we speak, some schools have actually met the criteria, but as also Mr. Luvemba has called in from Kitwe, there's still a lot of work that we're doing as an association to ensure that, as we support other driving schools, upcoming driving schools, to be able to also meet the standards. One of the key things that we want to have in place as an association.
Yeah, let me just get to the last caller. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Who's on the line and where are you calling us from?
It's Mr. Manjomba from Mlinga.
Mr. Manjomba from
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, when I was going to roll out that project to all schools in Zambia, because most of our children in these schools are quite vulnerable. With the increasing number of vehicles in Zambia, we need quite a lot of sensitization and